and welcome to this interview with Esteban Beltrán, Head Director of Amnesty International in Spain. He's going to answer our questions about human rights for an article that we're writing in El País de los Estudiantes. Hello, Esteban, and welcome to our school. Thank you very much for coming, and it's a real pleasure to have you here today. And without forwards, Marta is going to make the first question.
Good morning. Thank you for spending your time with us. I'm going with the question. Are we in bad times for human rights?
Good afternoon, all of you. And yes, we are living in bad times for human rights. Especially we see the perspective of how the situation has evolved in the last 2 or 3 years. Why are we living especially in bad times for human rights? Because first, we are living very cruel armed conflicts with massive targets through civil society, massive targets against hospital, markets, schools, like your school in Syria, for example, bombarded by Syrian government or Russia airplanes. Also because we are living, or they are living, this civil population, a kind of seas in cities that recalls or the situation of modern age in the 16th century, 15th century, which cities seized by Hungary, with no water, etc. And especially we are living bad time for human rights because also freedom of expression, association for human rights defenders, we are living especially bad times because the repression, laws that try to shrink in civil society and make the civil society more kind of a slave civil society. I think we are living now in bad times for human rights, yes.
Good afternoon. When you read Amnesty reports or you see in the news how the refugees are abandoned outdoors and facing cool conditions, and some even die of cold, do you feel assailed by pessimism? Are you pessimistic about the future that lies ahead of us?
No. I feel when I see 700 refugees, which has died so far in Greece because of winter and because the lack of action by European countries, or I see what today we did a report, we launched a report on kind of criminal politics by the Syrian government in jails in Syria. I feel like a kind of indignation because of the situation. There is an author, which is Jacques Rigaud, which say there is nothing to mobilize more people than injustice. So the injustice mobilizes good faith people. So when I see these kind of things, I feel indignation. I feel the injustice of what is happening. But I'm not pessimistic because we are living in bad times for human rights. But if I see with some perspective human rights, let's say 10, 20, 15, 25 years, we are in much better situation than we were in the past. Even things like death penalty, for example, we are having now 145 countries which has abolished the death penalty. So if we see things in perspective, I am not pessimistic, I am optimistic.
Without Amnesty International, would the world be even worse?
Well, yes, much worse. There is a journalist called Jonathan Powell. Jonathan Powell has written a lot of amnesty, even a book on amnesty. And he says something that I share completely. Say, Amnesty International still has not changed the the world the way that we wanted to change it. But the world would be much worse without Amnesty International. So we have not changed the world, but we control the damage of the world. So Amnesty International is a very powerful tool to defend the rights of the people. And without Amnesty International, these rights would be violated in a more dramatic way. Amnesty is like, with not just Amnesty and human rights civil society in countries is one of the main obstacles to the power. And being an obstacle to the power is something that we are proud of it.
You decided to join Amnesty International?
Well, I decided to join Amnesty International one specific day, the 24th of February, 1981. What happened the 23rd of February, 1981 was there is a coup d'etat, they tried a coup d'etat with Tejero in entry in the parliament, trying to suppress the democracy in Spain. I was looking at that time a column in El País, which was called the Prisoner of Conscience column. They published cases of human rights violations, amnesty cases of human rights violations every Monday in El País. And so I was reading this column, and then when Tejero get into the parliament and trying to suppress democracy, I decided to join Amnesty. So I went to the office, the 24th of February. I get into Amnesty, and Amnesty was at that time a very small place with few people working there, all volunteers. And I said, well, I would like to join Amnesty. And they said, well, I think it's a bad day to try to join Amnesty. So they were in that moment taking all Amnesty membership cards to the French embassy because they were afraid of that if the coup d'etat it was getting through, they were going to get all these membership cards and going to prosecute all these people. So I couldn't at that time to be an Amnesty member, but I came back 2 months later, and then I became an Amnesty member. So I decided to join Amnesty because I wanted to defend democracy.
What would you tell those who clearly state that human rights are an invention of the West, those of rich countries who want them to be imposed on the rest of the world?
Well, I think one of the main, perhaps the main thing that make me proud of human rights is because in 20th century, the century in which I was born, the human rights in the end became universal, so worldwide human rights. It's like the thin line that communicates all the human beings. In the past 19 centuries, human rights were a national issue. So each government would say, well, this is human rights national, this is how we treat my citizens. Now I decided what is good, what is bad for citizens. So with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, in the end is universal. So it's true that 1948, the Human Rights Universal Declaration started with just 3 countries because decolonization has not taken place at that time. But human rights is 1948 and what's happened in the last 70 years until now. And in the last 70 years, we have, for example, the Child Convention has been signed, but all over the world, all the countries in the world except 2 countries. The Torture Convention has been ratified by 148 countries. So all countries of all religion beliefs, all political orientation has been involved in the human rights development. So now what could be perceived that human rights started as a Western issue, in the end now is a universal issue. So, and this should make us proud of it. Is we, after the Second World War, one of the learnings was that there are certain crimes, like crimes against humanity, the genocide, like war crimes. They are so serious, so grave, that affects all of us, not just the victims, all of us, the humanity. And this is the what is deepest of human rights, affect of each of us. And each of us has the responsibility to respect, to promote, to defend, and to denounce human rights violations.
Hello. Do you ever get discouraged?
Well, if I feel discouraged, I take time to think. Sometimes, of course, you feel so not discouraged, but so with such as indignation of what is going on that you can feel a bit of this courage. And I feel sometimes sad what's happening to some people. I have met people in my research missions that have been killed, friends have been killed, people that I met several times have been killed or threatened or put in jail. So sometimes I feel sad because of the situation. But if I feel discouraged, I sit, I take time, and I think again to see the way that we can continue this battle. Because it's something that I learned over these 20 years in which I've been director of Amnesty in Spain, but also as researcher in Central America and other things that I did in Amnesty, is that get good things for human rights. You need to work all the time for human rights. There is no place in which you can arrive and to reach, in which you can really rest because human rights have been done. No, you need to fight every day. And when you had setbacks, when human rights are violated, or there is some regressive measures, you need to fight again. Fight and perseverance and continuity is what, in the end, make you win the battle. And the battle is so important that you need to fight every day.
Donald Trump has said, among other things, that torture is effective. What do you think about the new president of the United States?
It's a threat for human rights. What he has said is misogynist comments, racist comments, and what has done, which is sign a decree to not to allow to refugees and migrants from 7 countries to get into the United States, is a racist measure. When he says that torture is effective, he's doing 2 things, Donald Trump. One is lying, because never has been proved that torture is effective. On the contrary, torture is the worst research done by the police, because if you torture to somebody, this person is going to say what you want to listen, but not necessarily the truth. So he's lying when it says effective, but also is ignoring or allegedly ignoring that torture is prohibited by law, ratified by the United States since 1984. So he's promoting a crime when he says that torture could be effective. Hello.
What is, in your opinion, the most serious and widespread human rights violation in the world right now?
We have three or four widespread human rights violations. One is what is suffering the civil population affected by armed conflicts. You see all these people that has been killed, bombarded by armies. We are talking about tens of thousands of people every year. The refugees, we have 21 million of refugees outside the country. If we count people which is displacing within the country, we can talk about 60 million people. But also human rights violations against women. Women is half of the population of the world, at least, and they suffer clear discrimination because they are women, and this violence against women is cut across the world. So this is also a widespread human rights violation. The third one is freedom of expression, in about 103 countries which has been limiting freedom of expression in an unfair way. So freedom of expression is in risk. And the last one is the difference between poor and rich. Inequalities, we call that. So the inequalities make some people very rich, few people very rich, and most of which are poor. These lead us to serious human rights violations, such as they don't have right to housing, or they being affected with no housing, no medical care, no education. So inequality also is a context in which gross human rights violations are happening all the time.
Good afternoon. What can we do when the major developed countries such as Russia, the US, or China do not respect human rights?
Well, the name and shame. This could be the what we should say. Name and shame. So these are powerful countries in which I fear they are will be working together to alienate human rights in the coming years. So we are going to have plenty of opportunities to name and shame these three countries. No? Name and shame Russia, for example, for collaborating with the Syrian government and bombarding the civil population in Syria, or trying to suppress, shrink civil society in Russia. China, because most of the population has been controlled by the government, or we have these dissidents in jail, thousands of dissidents in jail, labor conditions, etc., etc., and also United States, because United States now is going to be one of the countries which wants to ignore and damage human rights. No, so we are going to have in front of us civil society, very powerful governments, but never like now. The civil society in the world has been so active, so strong to fight back and to protect human rights. We have been seeing now how the US civil society is protesting against Trump, and this gives a hope to the humanity.
When talking about human rights, are there better countries and worse countries?
Well, we don't make 40 principales list. We don't make that, but yes, you have, for example, some countries in which they execute 95% of death penalty executions. No? For example, you have China, you have Iran, you have Iraq, you have Saudi Arabia, you have the United States. So these are countries in which they commit human rights violations very serious. If we're talking about countries in which the war is especially cruel, we have Syria, we have Afghanistan, we have Iraq. So in all countries are human rights violations, but in some of them the situation is worse. Some of them are systematic human rights violation, like Syria. We cannot say that Syria and Denmark or Spain are the same thing. Are very different things, are more serious human rights violations in Syria.
Do most governments listen to Amnesty's petitions?
Unfortunately not, because the world could be much better if this happened. Most of the governments take seriously what we say. They try to damage us, they try to criticize us. But we always, every 20 years more or less, we publish all the critics that we receive from governments. No, but and there are countries that take more seriously what we have to say. There are countries which they don't want us to be there to research what we are doing, but all of them take us seriously because we have behind of us 7 million people. So 7 million people, which is the people that is in Amnesty, is a very serious figure. And also Amnesty is recognized because real research, serious research, good campaigning, good communication. So they take us seriously, but unfortunately, most of the governments, they don't want us to listen and what Amnesty have to say.
Thank you.
Why are human rights so important?
It's something that unifies the world and the cities of the world. So people like you in Burgos, with people in Sri Lanka, with people in Colombia, you have the same rights. This is simply a very important for humanity. You have the same rights because you are a human being. It doesn't matter where you was born. It doesn't matter your nationality. It doesn't matter anything. You have the same human rights. So this is so important because it makes you feel part of the human beings. Also because human rights guarantee you the right to health, the right to education, the right to be tortured, etc. And also human rights is not just a principle or no utopia. No. Human rights is something concrete. So if you are violated, you feel violated human rights, you can go to the courts, you can go to international courts. You can also, human rights make you work together with other parts of the society. Human rights is what you in your Instituto and myself and Amnesty now are linking together. It's human rights what link us. If you put together human rights and technology, what is happening now, internet and social networks, etc., you feel communicated all over the world.
Good afternoon. So at the moment, any kind of torture can be brought before a court. When will people be able to do the same with the lack of housing and employment or education? Will we see these rights in the legislation as soon as something enforceable before the courts?
It's a very good question. Yes, we are seeing that now in certain countries. For example, South Africa, the SIDA people have been able to get medicines and treatment because they complain in front of the court and they gain to the government the case in the court and they receive treatment because of that. So there are several constitutions in the world now, new constitutions, which recognize at the same level of protection the civil rights and economic and social rights. No? But there are still some work to do in this. First is to get in certain countries like us, like our country, that there are human rights at the same level. No? And in the constitution, we need to change the constitution or adopt certain laws to ensure that. Now, in Spain, for example, we have had since 2007, I think, about 700,000 people losing their houses and have been forced to leave. No? Foreclosure, disclosures, and so and none of them has reached a court. In a court, what is saying, well, you need every person that the right to be in a house, to be in a flat, to have a land. So in Spain is one of the countries we need to do more on this. But yes, I think the trend in the world is to ensure that the civil rights and the economic rights and the social rights have the same protections.
In your opinion, why could Obama not close Guantanamo? Did he really want to do it?
I think he tried to close Guantanamo, and really he has tried the best to close Guantanamo, but not with has not been a priority in the government. So this is also because he he had to convince to the Congress to help him to close Guantanamo, and this has not happened. But one of the good things is at the end in Guantanamo, there are about 40, 45 people now, and in the bad times, we had almost 1,000 people there. So still there work to do. Now our work is to ensure that Trump does not open again Guantanamo to new cases.
After seeing so many tragedies, are the members of Amnesty International sad?
Well, sometimes, as I said before, sometimes we feel sad. But for example, we here in the office, we celebrate each time that the person is put in the street, I was in jail, or when a country has abolished the death penalty. So, and in the end, you can imagine, we are celebrating all the time. In spite of bad news, last year, for example, about 650 people had better lives, and Amnesty contributed to them to have better lives in the world. 650 people, and we are living as I said in the first question, a very bad time for human rights. But in the end, we get things done, and we have people that is really thanking Amnesty. When I started in Amnesty, one of the reasons why I continued to be in Amnesty is because I was a volunteer in a group, and I started to write with other people to young people like you. He was in jail in Germany, in East Germany, because he tried to jump the wall and escape to the West Germany. And he was put in jail, and we started to write him in Spanish, of course, not in English, not even thinking in German, in Spanish, and he started to write us back. He started to learn Spanish to communicate with us, and in the end, he was freed. So this is why Amnesty, I started Amnesty and I continue in Amnesty, is because Amnesty is a very useful and efficient tool to get better lives for people.
Do you enjoy working for International Amnesty? If so, could you tell us why it is worth it?
Oh yes, I enjoy working in Amnesty. Or as director now, as researcher, or as a volunteer as it was in the past. I really enjoy it. I like impartiality. I like that we work together against China human rights violations, this day against USA human rights violations, tomorrow because the ley Mordaza in Spain. So I am convinced that we need to work all over the world. Amnesty allows us to work on that. And also I enjoy to work with people in Amnesty. Amnesty people is very nice. And in general, is people really committed. It's the best of the world. We have in Amnesty the best people, like activists or staff. So it's really good to work in Amnesty. It's also, if your work, in the end, is also useful for other people that is suffering. We all hopefully have a joke. If you get into the Amnesty and you stay for more than a year, you will stay forever in Amnesty.
Good afternoon. Who are responsible for the respect for human rights, and what can we young people do?
Well, the responsible to respect, promote, and guarantee human rights are the states. So we should not never replace the states. Are the states who are responsible for that. If they don't respect, promote, or guarantee human rights, we need to denounce what they are doing, we need to complain. And young people is really, we want you to be critical. We want you to be involved in human rights. We want, for example, that we have human rights compulsory studies in primaria and secundaria. We would like that. So you need knowledge, but most of all, you need to be critical. Be critical what we do in Amnesty, what the government, what your teacher is doing. But critical is the first step to be free. If you are not critical with your surroundings, you are not critical with the institutions, you are closer to being a slave. If you are critical, you question the world. If you don't agree how the things are in the world, is the first step to change it.
International Amnesty invites people to participate in demonstrations, collect signatures, etc. But after this, what? How do we know it helps? Are there any follow-up reports?
Yes, there are follow-up reports. Last year we had about, just in Spain, 2.5 million people join Amnesty online. We worked at about 100 cases, and we reported what's happening with these cases in each time that we can. So you know if your help has been worthwhile or not. In most of the cases that Amnesty has documented that mobilize people online or through activists or through groups like the Burgos group or whatever, in the end, what we manage is the people in the end has names, is known. So one of the main reasons why people is violated human rights is because the government think that the people is isolated, that they don't have friends, that they don't communicate internationally. But when the case is known, when thousands of people sign a petition or a request, when the government receives faxes or emails, because the case is possible that the case is not violated his human rights. Sometimes it happens, but if you are not any longer an anonymous citizen, you can be you can be easily free or not be tortured or subject to death penalty, etc. In the last days, for example, we bombarded with faxes Spanish government because one case in Ceuta and Melilla, a woman who is suffering gender violence, and we want her to be sent out to the peninsula instead of keeping her in Ceuta and Melilla, and the government receives about 2,000-3,000 faxes in 2 days, and they were very concerned about that. They called Amnesty, and for the first time in several months, there is a discussion with Amnesty what's happened with this woman. No? When we visited the India embassy, the India embassy was very concerned if we visit also the Bangladesh embassy. So there are a lot of testimonies that show that ordinary people writing letters, writing emails, signing requests online help a lot other people all over the world.
I guess we have left a lot of things out. Is there anything you would like to add?
I just want to mention that in Spain, human rights violations, there are a lot of things to do. Have to do with migrants. So hundreds of migrants are expelled illegally in Ceuta and Melilla. We have problems with the ley de orgánica de seguridad ciudadana, ley Mordaza, in relation to freedom of expression. Still, the victims of Franquism and civil war has not been given any hope to get truth, reparation, and justice. So we still have problems in Spain in terms of human rights violations. And I just want to mention that also we work on that in Spain too, in Amnesty Spain too.
Yeah, about the mass media, do you think they are actually manipulating information?
Well, I don't think so. Depends. No, if mass media is, I don't know if you mean journalists or newspapers, or you are talking about social network. I have a lot of respect because of the freedom of expression. I am not in favor of regulating the freedom of expression or controlling the newspapers or journalists. Even the social network. Social networks, they bring us some things that are not good, some manipulation, some campaigns. But in the end, if you see overall, you get more information, you get more point of views, and you can be better informed. Although you receive a lot of information, you can, in the end, better inform. So I am in favor of a world more interconnected, communicated, which allows the people to share information. So I am not in favor of regulating these kind of things. When you start to regulate media, mass media, social networks, journalistic papers, in the end, your government, if you do that, you are committing and perpetuating human rights violations against freedom of expression. Hello.
Did you imagine yourself as the head of Amnesty International, or did you think about another job?
Well, I really enjoy my job, but I do all the things that are not with Amnesty. I love my job because I love Amnesty and I love human rights. No, I am not thinking other kind of jobs. I like that. But I do other things. No, for example, I like to write. I write poetry. I write stories. So I do other things. But I started as activist Amnesty. I have been in Amnesty in Latin America, in England, or in Spain, all over the world. I like human rights, and I like my job.
Thank you very much for your cooperation and dedication. We would also like to wish you good luck with all your campaigns and actions to protect and promote human rights, although success means a lot of work. Thanks for your time.
Oh, it was a pleasure. I hope that you got good score in El País Estudiantes. And also, you can, with Carlos and other people, you can still be part of this human rights network. No, we need you also to work on human rights. So thank you for doing that. And if you need other things from us, you just tell us.
Wow.
Thank you.